All right. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. Now, pretty soon you're going to be handed out a worksheet that really continues on with simplifying these radical expressions. Okay. Now, remember, some of these are pretty simple. Okay. Some of those we've already been over like 2 or 3 times, maybe actually 4 or 5 times. But that's okay. The more practice, the better you guys are going to be. The better you will be at this. Okay. So I'm going to go over some ones directly from the worksheet. Okay, directly from the worksheet. So if you're taking notes right now, which you should be, you should have a couple of answers right off the bat. Okay. Now, some of them you'll just see it playing out as like this. Okay. Now remember correctly, if I have a number like this, square root of 28, all we're doing is trying to find a perfect square that goes in to that number. Okay? What's a perfect square that can go into that number? Okay, remember, if you need to make your list of perfect squares over to the side, you can go 1, 4, 9, okay, 16. And remember, these perfect square goes on and on and on and on, okay? Okay, just keep on going on. Now, you can determine that 4 can go into this 7 times. Now look how I spread this up. I did not take anything out of the radical. That's a very common mistake for you guys, okay? All I did was split it up. Now you can always check your work by multiplying 7 times 4. That gives me 28. Okay? Now, what's the square root of 4? That's going to be 2. Can we simplify the square root of 7? Nope. So that would be your answer. Okay? Now I'm getting ready to erase it, so if you need this to be paused, go ahead and pause it. Okay, now, so sometimes you'll see numbers like that. Then also sometimes you'll see some questions like this. Now, if we're looking at this, remember, to simplify this, we only multiply what we can multiply, and make sure that we multiply. Look at our square root of 5. Okay, the only numbers that we can simplify here is multiplying this square root of 5 times this square root of 5. Because look, they're inside the radical. Both of these numbers are inside the radical. Now this 3 is kind of chilling on the outside, right? So we're not going to mess with that. We're going to leave that be. I am going to multiply 3 times 5 gives me 25. Now, can we simplify this even more? Absolutely. That square root of 25 turns out to be 5, and then you're left with 5 times 3, and your answer will be 15. Okay? So you'll see numbers like that. Okay, also, you'll see numbers like instead of Q, that's going to be an X. Okay? You'll see a question like this. What do we need to do here? We need to simplify what we can simplify. Can we simplify it as it is right now? Heck no. We need to break it up so that we have the square root of X over the square root of 12. So all I did right there is just put both of my numbers underneath the radical. That way they're not under 1. Okay? Now, in this term, we can simplify. We can simplify that square root of 12. Okay, we can simplify that so that, what's a perfect square that can go into 12? 4. Okay, and it can go into it 3 times. Now make sure when you're writing this, you keep your numbers inside the radical. I'm not simplifying it any right now. I'm just breaking it up. Okay, now when you simplify this, leave that square root of X up top. My square root of 4 becomes 2, and then you have the square root of 3. Okay, so I can't simplify that anymore. Now, if if you remember correctly from yesterday, we cannot have those radicals in our denominator. Okay, that is a no bueno. So we need to multiply it by itself. We need to multiply the bottom and the top by the square root of 3. Remember our rules, what you do to the bottom, you need to do to the top, and vice versa. Okay? So when we have this, this turns out to be square root of x times the square root of 3. Now, in our denominator, let's think about this. Okay? If we multiply this square root of 9 times this square root of 9, this square root of 3 times the square root of 3 right here, that's going to give you the square root of 9. And the 2 stays on the outside. Okay? Now, we can simplify that square root of 9. Now, for our numerator, I'm going to combine these two numbers. I'm just going to write 3x right here. Because essentially that's what it is. You just multiply 3 times x, or x times 3. Okay? Now that square root of 9 becomes 3, and your final answer would be square root of 3x up top. 2 times 3 gives me 6. Alright, so that is your simplified answer. Okay, you can pause it if you need to, because I'm getting ready to clear the screen. Now, some things from yesterday that will be on this worksheet that you are getting ready to get is dealing with those conjugates. Okay. Say we have an expression like this, and we're asked to simplify this. All right. Remember, we cannot have that square root of 7 in our denominator, so we need to multiply the top and the bottom by its conjugate. Essentially, all you need to do is flip that positive to a negative. Okay? And what you do to the bottom, you need to do to the top. Alright? Now, when you do that, you're going to end up with 5 times 7 minus the square root of 7. Okay? And in our denominator, we're going to multiply this 7 times 7. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this 7 times this 7. What are we going to get? We're going to get 49 right there. Okay. Now next up, if I multiply this square root of 7 times this square root of 7, make sure you keep that negative side in front of these, you're going to get a minus square root of 49. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and distribute up top. 5 times 7 gives me 35. 5 times a negative square root of 7, it's just going to stay the same. Okay? That's all you're going to do right there. Because you can't simplify that anymore. Now for our denominator, I'm going to have 49 minus square root of 49 gives me 7. Okay? So when you get here, my numerator is going to stay up top. And when you do 49 minus 7, you're going to get a positive 42. Alright? And that would be your simplified answer. Okay? You're done. Because look, we don't have a radical in our denominator, so we're good to go on that part. Now, the substitute is getting ready to hand out, should be WB, which stands for Workbook 10-2. Now, you guys already had 10-2, but this is kind of a different version of 10-2, where you're going to be doing all these problems. Okay, so you're going to be doing all. All those deals with of what we've been talking about. Okay, and then also the numbers that I just went over. So if there's some misunderstandings, you guys can, first of all, you can have the substitute kind of rewind this and kind of go over it a couple times. You guys can kind of talk about it. If you're, make sure you guys are on task. And now I do not want you to skip over those word problems. So no word problems. Now there's only 2 of those on there. So do not worry about that. We can kind of talk about that later. My main thing is just getting this down. And then another thing is, remember, whenever you have, let's say if we have the square root of n to the 6, how do we simplify that? Really, that just becomes n to the 3rd. Okay? Essentially, you just cut that in half. Let's say if we had n to the 7th, remember, that's going to be simplified so that we're going to have the square root of n to the 6 times the square root of n. That's essentially 1 right there. Okay? That n to the 6 becomes n to the 3rd, and that comes out of the radical. That n, what we have left, stays in there. So that would be your simplified answer. Okay, does everybody see that? Now, I will be coming back Friday, so we can kind of run through this stuff again. But I do expect you guys to all work on this sheet and try to get a lot of this stuff done. So that when I come back Friday, we can kind of roll through this and move on a little bit. I hope you guys are having a good day. If there's any questions, like I said, I'll be back Friday. Now that raft writing assignment is going to be due Friday. Okay, so you had all of Monday to complete that. But for those of you that did not finish, that will be due Friday. So let me write that over here. So due Friday. Sorry for my handwriting. Due Friday, that raft writing assignment. And guys, that should be a free 100, okay? So it's that raft writing assignment. That should be a free 100. As long as you complete it, show some effort. That's all I'm after. Okay.